Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and in this video we're going to be checking out SKULLTAKER, the brand new legendary lord for Khorne in Omens of Destruction. This is the paid legendary lord, by the way. So, before anything, we do need to talk about faction and lord effects. The first thing is the faction effects has access to the Cloak of Skulls, allowing SKULLTAKER to empower his faction by defeating powerful lords. Hero capacity +2 for Blood Reapers, always very useful. Demons are reforged, plus 10% chance for destroyed bloodletters to be restored after battle, all armies. Upkeep minus 15% for bloodletters of Khorne and exalted bloodletters of Khorne, very useful for all armies. And now in the Lord effects we have campaign movement range plus 10%, campaign line of sight plus 100%, passive ability frenzy for bloodletter and exalted bloodletter units in Lord's army, which to be honest I think they should just have naturally, but yeah, and ability Bloody Onslaught. So SKULLTAKER has his own unique campaign, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff here. There will be timestamps with anything that might be considered spoilery, like, for example, a cinematic, where there is one in the intro as per usual. And if you want to see more of SKULLTAKER and any of the other legendary lords, I'll be live on twitch.tv/thegreatbookofgrudges. But with that being said, let's jump into the campaign and check out the lord.
This world has many champions. But to be the greatest of all, one must forge their legacy in the fires of chaos. Many worthy heroes have fallen before him. Their skulls, trophies, woven into the fabric of his cape. Each bestowing him with the power of a champion's essence. For he is SKULLTAKER, champion of champions, collector of souls. His destiny beckons, blood for the blood god.
Pretty hype up cinematic if you watched it, but if you didn't, it's perfectly fine. Now we're going to talk about the campaign. So we've started here in north-central Lustria. You're going to be fighting with a lot of enemies, mostly because there are so many different types here. You're not just going to be dealing with, say, for example, Lizardmen and Skaven, but the Vampire Coast, Bretonnia, the Empire, Grand Cafe, lots of Dark Elves. The great thing about this campaign is if you like to fight loads of different potential enemies, you're going to have a good time in here. SKULLTAKER has access to 2 mounts, a Blood Throne at rank 6 and his Juggernaut at rank 9, so you're going to get that really early on. It's pretty good actually because the Juggernaut is a key mount, and then his unique skill line is going to focus on a few different things. You're going to be getting a lot of replenishment back from winning a battle. That's going to help you out a lot. Lots of speed bonuses. Reducing enemy leadership is fantastic. You've got a lot of corruption spreading there with the Legacy of Blood, which again going to help you quite heavily. Missile block chance for your bloodletters, very helpful. And you've got Executor, which is going to allow you to execute low health enemies literally just by hitting them once. You're very lucky there. As you can imagine, his skill line is going to be focused very heavily on getting into combat, and I mean, it makes sense. This is a Khorne Lord, and you're going to be in a lot of combat in the middle of Lustria, that's for sure. You do also have access to just one unique item, where there's a quest battle for it at rank 14. It's just going to make you even stronger for more damage and getting more skulls. SKULLTAKER is very powerful as he stands, so that item is just going to make him much more deadlier. If you're expecting to have a character killer, that's exactly what you're going to have with this legendary lord. So you're going to start off with a pretty good army just to jump into your campaign, which I think is quite nice. You've got 1 Exalted Bloodletter, 3 units of Bloodletters, a unit of Blood Crushers, a unit of Blood Beasts, a Blood Throne, and a Blood Reaper to start off with. So you've got pretty decent forces, and you're just going to jump in straight to fighting the Tzeentchian forces over there. You can easily auto-resolve these first 3 battles. They're not really that difficult. They're designed to be the easy intro for someone who might be trying this faction out for the first time. There is something that I'm not too keen on from the very beginning of the campaign, and that's in case you want to actually hit the first settlement, you're going to have to use your Unholy Manifestation turn 1. I find that to be a bit of a waste. Some factions have to do that. I don't think Scarbrand has to do that anymore, but it just slows down momentum and you know, you could use that later on to deal with anyone else just to get a little bit of extra movement, especially since the cooldown on it can be a little frustrating. Generally, they'll be super easy fights if you're used to playing Total War or even just as Khorne by itself. But for the newer players, they might get a little confused and make a wrong mistake there. You're also probably better off not auto-resolving at the very beginning if you're newer to Khorne, just so you don't end up getting destroyed or losing out on a unit with auto-resolve's weird temperament. Just like other Khorne factions, you don't really want to actually spend your time occupying settlements, as that's going to slow down your momentum. You have the choice for it, and you should do that around capital cities, because those are the most beneficial to you in every way, shape, or form. We'll get to there when we start talking about construction. So, raising, sacking are going to be your main forms, especially here in Lustria. Sacking works well for sack settlements if you need that, and believe me, sack settlements work very, very well for Khorne at the moment. But yeah, get yourself some skulls, recruit some units, and then start moving down. You will notice that Alberic at north is going to start expanding, and you're going to want to prepare yourself as fast as possible. I haven't really found an optimal technology pathway for SKULLTAKER, but what I normally do here is get the tech that allows for extra chances of colonization for ruins, and then I start making my way through the bottom left-hand corner of the actual combat line, the armaments. This is because you can get reductions to foot troops by 10%, all your foot troops. Your foot troops are expensive if you're going to be focusing on demons or mortals all mixed up. They're still rather expensive, and you're going to be using them for a fair amount of time into your campaign. Growth is rather slow, so you're likely going to be running quite a lot of foot troops for a lot of your early game. Construction for Khorne has drastically changed, so keep that in mind. If you build up the main settlement tree, which is focused around demons, that's the one on the far left side, then you can only build up the military buildings surrounding demons. Same thing for the right. If you build that one, it's focused around mortals, so you can only focus around the buildings building mortal units. It's completely locked. The only one that's, I think, any different is the one that focuses around the monsters, because monsters are kind of universal there. This does mean that your settlements will be stylized in one way, shape, or form, either demon or mortal, and you will also have enough room to put in the infrastructure buildings, as infrastructure buildings are fairly decent. You can get some faction-wide bonuses, especially the trophy hall one. It's probably the best one there. They do stack with others, so you can get ridiculous amounts of cash coming in very, very quickly. Now, you might be wondering why I'm talking about this when we already spoke about it during the rework video, and it's because, likely with SKULLTAKER, you're going to want to focus around demons, because you get those bonuses for bloodletters. But with the minor settlements, you might as well make them the mortal buildings, and this is because you can build up the Forge, which is the basic marauder building very early on. It does provide you with some income generation. You're not going to get a lot of income coming in, but every little bit helps, especially early on, as there is a lot of movement involved, so you're not always going to be at the top of your bloodletting. So this is going to be a faster way for you to be able to maintain some extra troopers with 1, 2, or 3 armies that you might be running around with. This is going to be a very combat-heavy campaign for you, even more so than I would say Scarbrand, because you've got so many legendary lords around you, you're always going to be public enemy number 1. You are essentially surrounded. As soon as you start taking care of Alberic, you're going to have the Hunts Marshal looking at you, and between that means that you're going to have Yuan Bo looking at you. It says right behind you. You've got some potential friends with Rakarth and Luther Harkin, but remember that they will betray you at a given chance. Total War AI, especially for diplomacy, is interesting to say the least. Let's just say it that way, right? My opinion for SKULLTAKER when it comes to your provincial-wide bonuses, Monuments of Rage is probably going to be the best one for you, because extra growth and reducing the construction cost for your stuff is going to be amazing. You need to get this up and running. If you're just going to be stuck with foot bloodletters, you're going to be having a lot of problems. They're pretty good units overall, yes, but you're going to be starting to deal with the Empire and with Cathay, and they've got some decent movement and some pretty good range too. Alright, let's talk about the Cloak of Skulls. This is the brand new mechanic only available to SKULLTAKER, and as you get into combat, as you start killing enemy lords, you'll get a resource that will start pooling up and allow you to spend on the Cloak of Skulls. There are 10 nodes, each of them with 3 different upgrades, so they're going to cost more and more resources, but it's well worth it. You're going to be able to pick up extra melee attack and melee defense per active node for SKULLTAKER, army abilities, passive abilities. Keep in mind that this cloak is going to focus like 99% of the time on SKULLTAKER himself, but it makes him an absolute powerhouse. He gets pretty damn disgusting once you get closer to the end. There are some benefits like getting a lot of XP, which then will benefit Mentor, and you'll be able to start power leveling up other characters. It's a fun mechanic and definitely needs to be looked at by Quick Head Taker because, you know, it could be used again. Not obviously identical, but a little bit different. And if you want to beeline to the central upper left, if you can upgrade it fully, every time you defeat an enemy lord, any ruins around the area will end up getting colonized. So you can empire build rather quickly. I think, actually, that SKULLTAKER has the fastest empire building. It does take a while to get there. Now, don't worry about this taking a while. When you would have seen some footage, it would have been like, oh yeah, this lord is worth 16 skulls. Another one might be worth 8. But as long as you're killing stuff and you're letting the campaign progress naturally, some lords might be worth 200. Later on, in just like turn 30, I saw Mazdamundi being worth like 200 skulls. A very big benefit that SKULLTAKER is going to have in his campaign is Lustria is rich in resources. And as you might know, a bunch of these resource buildings, especially for Khorne, are now free tier. Some of them have faction-wide bonuses, some of them have just bonuses for the area, but there are some really good ones. The Iron Mine, for example, once you get it all the way to the top, +5 armor for all armies. The Gold Mine is -3 upkeep for all armies. It might not seem like a lot, but I believe there's like 2 gold mines around this area, and there's a fair few amount of them throughout the whole world. So if you're doing a full world conquest, well, you're going to have some really cheap armies by the end of it. Momentum for SKULLTAKER can be incredibly well, especially as you progress through the Cloak of Skulls, you'll end up getting a teleport. So over here, I've got 3 targets I want to take out, but I want to take them out individually, and I want to take them out in the same turn. It's going to be in my benefit to pick up more resources, and also just getting rid of the Empire faction in Lustria. So, straight in, take them out. Very simple there. I can just auto-resolve that. It's a very easy fight. Then turn my attentions to the other units by teleporting over there. Now, here's where it gets tricky, right? There's 3 armies. One of them is in march stance. The others are in a garrison. The idea here now is to fight the garrisons first. Make sure that they retreat. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but this is what I mean about getting all the way up to full momentum. Just hope that the enemy spawn point is somewhere that you can get to before the enemy comes to you and you're golden. Though, in this battle, very interestingly enough, the defending army, the one that's actually tired because of force march, they didn't come to defend. I was attacking the other enemies and nothing. Weird. Now, I've played SKULLTAKER for a number of campaigns now, and there are many different circumstances that could happen, not just even in Lustria, but other locations if you're already starting to branch out. So if you're lucky, you can keep the momentum going from army to settlement for a decent amount of time. You should be fine attacking multiple enemies, but keep in mind that you want to try and limit yourself. Yes, you are a Khorne faction, but there's a lot of factions that will turn against you. This is why I'm trying to get rid of the Hunts Marshal, despite the fact that those Dark Elves weren't doing anything to me, and Yuanbo had already been attacking me. You don't want the Dark Elves losing and then the Hunts Marshal getting his momentum back and then causing problems for you. Destroy factions, even if they seem too weak. Okay, let's fast forward here to turn 31. There is quite a lot of damage. I mean, I've been pushing all the way up to Mazdamundi now, and the plan is to, like, kill him off and then start working my way down into Lustria too. It's just, if you start going too down, then you start triggering Oxyotl, who is quite powerful versus demons. There's different ways to going about it, and you are more than capable of taking over Lustria quickly. The fighting is quite interesting, that's for sure. The variety of all the different enemy types is a breath of fresh air, especially if you're used to playing in a nation where it's very samey, playing as like the Death Master, for example, in Cafe. It's just cafe, and more cafe. The Lustria Ball is definitely back, but it does feel a little bit better since some factions were moved around. That was back in the launch of Immortal Empires, but yeah, it's noticeable when you start putting in new characters in there. But before we end it, let's talk about a kind of basic, but still very interesting quest battle. It's based in the Wholesaler Sword. This is where SKULLTAKER had beaten Sigmar, I believe, but there's a few things about it.
Champions of stunted mortals! Why sacrifice your chanceless servants when you can meet me on the front line? Are you not worthy? This place This lingering stench of defeat. Sigmar should have died here. Today, you will die in his stead. Dowry, prove your worth. Show your strength so that I may imbibe it. For I thirst and thirst. Your skull.
This is a really cool map, and we never get to see it in campaign, which is a massive issue. There's a lot of really talented map designers, and these things, I mean, it's not the best looking map, sure, but it's very thematic. It shows one-sidedness in that sense, because you've got defense in that area. We need to see more maps like this. There's clearly a lot of talent, and this needs to be placed in there. Anyways, let me give you some thoughts about SKULLTAKER's campaign. So I've played for a decent amount of time. I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a while. I've got like 4 or 5 multiple campaigns because I like to test out different theories. I must say, it's expected, and it's not really drastically different from your Khorne campaign. The big issue with Khorne, SKULLTAKER, and Arbal is they're all going to feel very samey, but that's the issue of Games Workshop creating Khorne to be very samey. It does provide you a different aspect. I would say that you're heavily incentivized to use demons more than mortals here, but it does work quite fine to kind of mix and match. Same with Scarbrand, really. The Bloodletters being cheaper, it's quite nice because they're an expensive unit. Grave Assembly said in a blog that they were going to be cheaper, but I'm telling you what, I don't see them being cheaper. The start position, I found it weird, but I kind of started growing onto it. So I think that's a very, very good thing. Now, I can't rate him because that would kind of count as a review, but I can compare him to the other characters. Arbal has an awful start position. Scarbrand's is very low friendly. I would have preferred SKULLTAKER up further north, but hey, it kind of works. I'm not going to rate him, but I would say his campaign is pretty fun. It's mostly just getting your character to be overpowered, which you're already kind of used to anyway with Scarbrand, but this is in a smaller yet faster sense, because you've got a character who's on foot. He's infantry size, but he can kill characters very quickly. You can make him stupidly overpowered that he can take out big monsters by himself. The only real issue is there's no narrative. They've obviously gotten rid of the Realm of Chaos, but there doesn't seem to be an overarching narrative in the campaign, and it's pretty much the same for every single character in Omens of Destruction. Now, Thrones of Decay didn't have a narrative, however, their campaign mechanics were a bit more, so it kind of gave you that narrative. With Elspeth, you're protecting yourself, you're protecting the Empire. With Tamilcar, you're building up a horde to destroy the Empire. And when you're playing as Malachi, you're just going out on a quest system, right? SKULLTAKER doesn't have that, really. Golg, the Man-Eater, does, but you'd be expecting narrative with every single lord in some way, shape, or form. One thing that Khorne has that the others don't is that they have a lot of legendary lords. You have Sylar, you have Karanak, and you also have access to Scar Bloodwrath. So you've got a lot to play around with there. The Ogres only have 1, the Greenskins only have 1, so you can get a lot more themed armies out there, which is really, really nice. I didn't talk about the units in this video, mostly because the units were already done. There's a battle video out there because Creative Assembly randomly changed their format of embargoes, but I think the units are inconsequential here. You want to look at the campaign itself or the characters more than anything else. The big question would be, why would you play this over Arbal, who's free, or Scarbrand, who you already have? The idea here is if you want to focus more on going with a smaller style demons, using a ton of bloodletters, possibly even keeping the heralds the same and not putting them as exalted bloodthirsters. There has been some big changes to demons, which does make a demon-only campaign viable. That whole return from dead thing, which is literally just copy-pasted from the vampire counts, that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. It's going to allow you to actually invest in demon armies. It's fun, it's definitely fun if not a challenge, but the new Blood Host system also kind of complements it quite well. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. I'll be streaming today on twitch.tv/thegreatbookofgrudges, provided my PC doesn't blow up. But yeah, pop by, say hi. I'll see you all again very, very soon, guys. Have a nice day.